Welcome back into the College Football Every Game on the Board podcast, part number 2. Teddy covers our two-hole hitter. A lot of people say the two-hole hitter should be your best hitter. He likely is. We'll let you guys decide. And we got a question here we'll ask you as well. Teddy, please smash that like button, guys. We are going rotation order 127, 128 down to 143, 144 on this section, hitting every game on the board. Teddy covers, welcome in. How you feeling?
I'm doing all right, Drew. How about yourself, man? I got there's always stuff to complain about, but this isn't the spot for it, my friend. Let's see if we can make some sense of the middle part of the college football card for Saturday.
Let's get after it here in the Big Ten. No, in the ACC, excuse me. 125, 126. Miami, Virginia Tech here, Teddy. 12:30 Eastern kick. 47 being the total. -7. That's the Miami Hurricanes on the road. Both of these two teams can't remember the last time either cashed a ticket. Somebody's got to cash something here, unless it lands 7, Teddy. What are you liking in Virginia Tech?
Blacksburg. Yeah, I mean, in Blacksburg. So, this could push. we can see neither team cashing again this week. Both squads come in on 3 games straight up and ATS losing streaks. Virginia Tech's, I don't know which one's uglier. Virginia Tech's is probably uglier because the defense is falling apart. Pitt lit them up. North Carolina lit them up. And that's a problem for a team that, in theory, is supposed to have a defensive identity when you give it up 41 and 45 in back-to-back weeks. And it's not like they shut down West Virginia the week before. They gave it 200 on the ground and 200 through the air in that ball game and lost. So, yeah, I mean, Virginia Tech wasn't a team that the markets were particularly excited about coming into the season, and that certainly hasn't changed now. Miami is a team that at times the markets has shown enthusiasm for, but they too are coming in on the midst of that 3-game straight up and ATS skid. Miami dropping Texas A&M, Middle Tennessee, and North Carolina last week. And they fell to North Carolina last week. And again, I bet the over, so maybe I'm not the wrong guy to think about. But Van Dyke was incredible in that ball game. He threw for a career high 496 yards, and Miami finished the game with 24 points and it stayed under by 2 scores. So, sometimes the team can move the ball all up and down the field, but when it comes to the red zone, it doesn't result in the touchdowns necessary. Don't know the Virginia Tech's defense is going to be able to stop Miami in the red zone in this one. On the other hand, is the Hurricanes defense good enough to lay points with like this on the highway? Not necessarily. I'd probably look at the over again this week. I think Miami's a dead nuts over team. Virginia Tech's defense is rough. I would not be surprised if we see points in bunches in this one.
Teddy, let's talk your alma mater here, and arguably the game of the weekend. 12 noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific kick here. 127, 128 in the Big House. Penn State at Michigan. 51.5 being the total. Big Blue, -7 at home. Teddy, I got Penn State circled here, plus the 7. What are you thinking in the Big House, man?
Of course you got Penn State circled plus 7. It's I do too. I'll put it to you that way. And of course, you're getting, Penn State hasn't done, they had the one TV game against Auburn where they blew out Auburn, but Auburn's obviously not very good this year. So that's been kind of devalued, that road victory, the road victory at Purdue to open the season. Not anything that anyone is, Purdue's not the team that people are excited about that. But the bottom line is this is a Penn State team with a veteran QB in Clifford who has done very well on the highway, not just this year, last year as well, the year before that. In fact, if you're looking for one role where we like James Franklin in, it's this road dog role or anywhere on the highway. That's where Penn State's been at their best at ATS, and there's nothing to dislike about the Nittany Lions defense. Say what you want about the offense, which at times is hit or miss. The defense is rock solid, has been all season. And again, they were able to win a game against Northwestern in which they committed 5 turnovers, lost 5 turnovers in that contest, and they still won by double digits, which tells you what Penn State is, in theory, capable of doing. Michigan had that sluggish first half last week, came out in the second half and blew out Indiana. There's certainly nothing to dislike about the Wolverines, and their defense, too, is elite. So, I mean, the best bet in this one might well be the under, but of course, 51 and a half. We're talking veteran quarterbacks and offenses that are capable, but I wouldn't be surprised here at all if the defenses outshine the offense. From a side standpoint, I do think Penn State may well be live. I think when you certainly look at both sides of the football, I'm not convinced Michigan has faced a better team this year. I'm not convinced they've faced anyone close to as good as Penn State is. I mean, what's the best offense Michigan's faced this year? Maryland, and Maryland took them to the wire. What's the best defense they faced? And they're not going to move the ball up and down the field against Iowa.
Yeah.
I'm not convinced they're going to do that against Penn State either. Lean Nittany Lions, lean under.
The beauty of every game on the board. We're going from Ann Arbor, Michigan to Lexington, Kentucky here. Mississippi State at Kentucky. Teddy covers 7:30 Eastern Saturday night. Mississippi State -4 now on the road. 49.5 the total here.
Mississippi State played one road game against a team that can play defense, and that's their loss this year. They got slapped around at LSU, lost that game by a double-digit margin. Remember, they were chalk in that contest as well. And the offense didn't work. And when you look at the defenses they faced, I mean, they did face A&M. And it's not like Arkansas is a joke, but there's also, it feels like the betting bandwagon for Mississippi State just grows and grows and grows. And -4 is not that high, but we don't know who's going to play quarterback for Kentucky this week. We know this much after watching the backup last week. If Levis doesn't play, I'm not so sure. I want the Wildcats in South Carolina last week, even after a 6.5 point line where that line opened 10.5 and closed 4. South Carolina won that game by double digits, and the Kentucky offense didn't do a whole lot. Kentucky offense doesn't do a whole lot. And that's definitely a concern here against a Mississippi State team that finds ways to put the biscuit in the basket. Let's see what happens with the Kentucky QB situation. I certainly think they're more live with an NFL-bound QB behind center than without him. And right now, the QB situation for Kentucky very much in doubt. We don't know. So we'll see what happens as the week progresses.
Speaking of putting the biscuit in the basket, we got North Carolina and Duke up next, Teddy. 8 p.m. Eastern here. The Warren Tobacco Road, I believe it's called, -7. That's UNC on the road. 67 being the total here.
Yeah, I mean, so I'll give North Carolina's defense some credit for what happened last week, because they did stiffen up in the red zone on multiple occasions, and they did stiffen up on 4th down. But they also allowed another quarterback to get a career high against them in 496 yards. I don't trust Chiswick's defense to lay any points with North Carolina. I just don't. It's not the stop unit. And again, they've shown better signs lately, but still, you just gave up a career high last week, even though you did stiffen in the red zone. And certainly on paper, North Carolina has a lot more talent than Duke, on both sides of the ball. But Chiswick's defense isn't one that impresses me. And Duke has flat out overachieved this season. I know they lost last week as chalk against Georgia Tech. But we've seen defensively, this team's been better than I thought they were going to be. Now, I don't know that they're going to be able to hang and shut down, May in that Tar Heels passing game. And I don't know they can trade points with Duke. I think if you like Duke plus in this ball game, you may want to correlate that and see to maximize your ROI and parlay that with the under, because Duke is not getting in the 40s here. Duke's, they're just not that kind of offense, even with the Tar Heels defense that struggles. So I do think there's some correlation here between Duke and under, if you like that side. I'm not convinced the correlation exists on the other side between North Carolina and over, but Duke's not going to trade points with North Carolina for 4 quarters. So if they're going to hang in this game, I would expect it will be at least somewhat lower scoring.
Heading to Gainesville, Florida, Saturday night, 7 p.m. Eastern. Next game up, rotation order 133, 134, guys, as we're going down in rotation order using the Wager Talk Live odds screen. It's just those little numbers next to the team name hidden every game on the board. This is part number 2 with Teddy_covers on Twitter. Check them out, Wager Talk and sportsmemo.com. We got LSU at Florida here, Teddy, 52 being the total. The Florida Gators -2.5 at home. Teddy, I watched this Florida-Missouri game last week. They almost let that slip out. Missouri, I felt like, was going to come back and win that game. And LSU, I mean, offensively, they haven't been able to do anything all season. What are you thinking here?
Yeah, I mean, again, well, the one thing that we definitely don't want to do is overreact to what we just saw last week. All that said, look at Florida's season right now, okay? They beat Utah in the opener. And basically, they've been overvalued ever since.
Yeah.
They lost at home to Kentucky. South Florida gave them a battle and a half. South Florida's not any good. Missouri gave them a battle and a half. Missouri's not any good. Tennessee beat them and did pretty much whatever they wanted to offensively throughout the entirety of that contest. So, the big win is Utah in the opener with the interception in the end zone, and then Eastern Washington. I'm not excited about Florida right now. I'm not. So if I'm going to get involved in this game, it will be with the LSU side in this one. And look, I mean, we're going to find out on Saturday if LSU deserves to be shamed by what happened against Tennessee last week. The clients and I were on Tennessee in that ballgame. I think the Vols are real good, and we'll see how they do against Alabama this week to see if Tennessee, again, we'll determine the level of shame for LSU for last week's embarrassment. But I like a team off an embarrassing loss, especially when they're stepping up and getting a chance to redeem themselves. And it's not like Brian Kelly's squads have when they have a bad game, they fall apart. No, I would expect LSU to bounce back strong here. And if I'm playing, the Tigers is the only side I could look at in this one.
Teddy, I was talking with Ralph Michaels and Rob Vino. Billy Napier or Brian Kelly? In your opinion, who's the better coach?
So I've only seen Napier have success at one stop. I've seen Kelly have success at all three previous stops. So I'm going to have to give it to Kelly right now based on what has been proven. Napier comes in with extraordinary body
success
of work I'm looking for.
At ULL. I mean, that was one of the best runs in college football.
Sure. An extraordinary body of work and a guy that comes in with accolades everywhere. You can go in 100 places and find look for a bad quote about Billy Napier. You're not going to find one. People are impressed with his organization. People are impressed with his offense. People are impressed with his defense. They're impressed with his people skills. They're impressed. But I kind of remember everyone saying the same thing about Dan Mullen like 5 years ago. So, I have to give it to the guy who's done it at multiple stops, and that'd be Kelly.
Okay. I like that answer. At Teddy_covers on Twitter. Guys, check them out. WagerTalkSportsMemo.com. Every play since February, 230, 176. That's 57% with an ROI plus 150% ROI. So, guys, 57% doesn't sound like all that much, but over the long term in this business, there's not many people doing that at all since February. So check them out. Been one of the best handicappers out there for quite some time. Teddy covers, WagerTalkSportsMemo.com. We got Maryland, Indiana up next, 3:30 Eastern time, 135, 136 here, Teddy. -11, that's the Terps is the road favorite, 61.5 being the total.
I'm going to come to this game in a minute because I have to get back to the Kelly Napier thing because it's bugging me.
Sure.
Because if you ask me to win a game today, I want Brian Kelly. If you ask me right now, which of the two coaches would you hire to lead a program that went 0-12 last year? I would hire Napier. He's younger and he's more enthusiastic. I don't want the veteran retread coach for that kind of job. I want Napier tomorrow for So it's a different question.
I got
when
you.
It comes to Maryland, Indiana. I mean, you comfortable laying this price with Maryland on the highway?
That's what I was just thinking. I mean, I like Maryland, but laying doubles on the road, I don't know. Bloomington, no, not really. I'm not going to lay it. No.
Yeah, exactly. Me neither. The markets are telling us, though. I mean, this point spread's telling you that Maryland's in theory, supposed to be the right side, and the offense certainly has plenty of explosiveness. No one shut down Maryland all year.
Yeah.
I mean, the offense really has moved the football. They haven't had the turnover problems that plagued them a year ago. There's a lot of big play capability for that team. But defensively, it's still Maryland. It's not. This is not an elite defensive squad. All that being said, I mean, Indiana's not very good this year. They weren't very good last year. They have a defense that is very exploitable, and they have an offense that's turning the ball over, and they can't run the football. So it's not like I'm excited about the Indiana side in this one. Not a game I'm likely to play. Maybe look at the over. But I don't trust the Hoosiers to score. This offense is not as good as it was in recent seasons, and it's certainly showing in terms of their straight up and ATS results. Indiana has not been a good bet. And again, last week they snuck in by a point or two against Michigan. The value was there. The value is probably there this week, but the line still much shorter.
Yeah, Teddy, now that I have a chance to look at it a little bit, I haven't seen Indiana in quite some time. I didn't catch that Michigan game, but yeah, you're right. 4 straight losses against the spread, and then they sneak through the number last week. I don't know. You're right. It's already been bet up from -10 to -11. I think it's just pointing towards the Terps if you need something in the Maryland Indiana game. Now that I look at it, NC State Syracuse going at the same time here, 3:30 Eastern, 12:30 Pacific. Make sure you don't have too much going on, guys, and multiple TVs, because there's a lot of good games midday on Saturday. NC State at Syracuse here, Teddy, 42 being the total, -3 in the hook. There is a -3 out there at Circa in Las Vegas. That's Syracuse as the home favorite. Interesting handicap here, Teddy.
Yeah, we don't know if Dennis Leary's going to play. Devin Leary, I should say. Dennis Leary's definitely not going to play in this one. Devin Leary for NC State is very questionable, and there is a drop off when you're talking about a multi-year starter at QB, even against an Orange team that. And from a situational standpoint, all right, this game screams Syracuse. All right, NC State is off 2 brutal barn burners. Clemson down to the wire. Florida State last week rallying from behind, stealing it at the end. And now you got to go on the road and play a team that you're not necessarily excited about playing. And it's a natural flat spot for the Wolfpack. All Syracuse has done is overachieve so far this season. All they're doing is winning games, covering point spreads. Dino Babers, they kept him around. And I'm certainly, if you're a Orange alumni, I think you're glad that they did, at least right now. They're playing some pretty good ball. And defensively, they've been really strong, way better than I expected Syracuse to be. And it's been that way really from the opener against Louisville, hasn't changed. The only team that moved the football effectively against them was Purdue in that passing game early on. NC State's offense isn't dynamic with Leary. Without him, they're definitely not dynamic. So the money here is going to move based on what happens with the Wolfpack QB situation over the course of this week. But regardless of whether Leary plays or not, only side I can look at here is the Syracuse side.
Teddy, let's head to Muncie, Indiana. 2:00 Eastern kick here. 139-140 UConn and Ball State. We're seeing Ball State -9 in the hook, 47.5 being the total.
And it's so funny because you talk about all these marquee matchups. This is the one I'm excited. I mean, I really want to watch this game.
Okay.
Like, no joke. It's a fascinating game. It's an absolutely fascinating game for me. And I understand it's Ball State against UConn. But it's a really interesting game. Look what UConn's doing right now, okay? And again, it's UConn, all right? We're not going to put the cart ahead of the horse. I don't think they've beaten anyone that has any capability. But back-to-back wins. They just knocked off Fresno State and Florida International. And the Fresno State one came as 23-point dogs. And Florida International came, they were favorites, and they covered. And they ran the ball for almost 300 yards in that game. The third time this year that they've run for like 250-plus. Running game's working for UConn. Can Ball State stop that? Maybe. But when you're starting to talk about taking UConn in competitively priced games, are we ready to make that leap? With Mora and his squad. And, it's a Ball State team that's finding ways to win games. They found a way to beat Northern Illinois as a dog. They found a way to beat Central Michigan last week as a dog. But when you're talking about in the favorites role, it's a different story. Ball State probably has the better athletes, which you can't say that in a lot of games that they play. But I wouldn't. I'm interested to see how this one plays out. I doubt I'll bet on it. If I do, it can only be UConn plus right now. Ball's not a team I want to lay points with, and then the Huskies are starting to believe.
We got 2 games left here, guys, on part number 2 of the Every Game on the Board podcast. Feel free to reply below. Any questions, your thoughts on any of the takes for any of these games, all welcome. Sports betting questions, lifestyle questions. Teddy's in Las Vegas right now. All is welcome. And do want to give some love to some questions here on Twitter here, Teddy, as we take a break from the 2 games. We got Joey at Jamaican Sunset with a question. Teddy, question for you and Drew. I didn't see any mention of it in the opening line report, but do you factor in the Giants defensive coordinators, Wink Martindale, the Ravens' old D, possibly shutting or slowing down Lamar Jackson in this game. So, Teddy, any thoughts there on that question from Twitter?
So from a point spread perspective, you're not going to quantify it in any way, shape, or form. So from an opening line report standpoint, it's not something that's going to move the line. The fact that Martindale was Baltimore's defense coordinator, and now he's the coordinator on the opposing team this week, someone with intimate knowledge of what Baltimore likes to do. But before we give the Giants clear advantage, because Martindale, in theory, is going to know how to shut down Jackson in the offense, let's not forget that on the Baltimore side, they know Wink Martindale's tendencies as much as anyone and can coach to them. So, Harbaugh's no fool. So I don't look at that particular matchup as, from a handicapping standpoint, you can use it. But if something's going to affect the point spread, doesn't affect the point spread one iota, nor should it, in my opinion. It's not something that's an easy handicap to say, the Giants definitely have the edge here. No, because Baltimore knows the way Martindale likes to call plays, and that will certainly influence their own game planning for this one. So not anything was a clear edge for the G-Men in that regard.
Thank you, Joey, at Jamaican Sunset for the question. And guys, promo time for the opening line report, 10 a.m. Pacific time, each and every Monday on the Wager Talk YouTube channel. Teddy Covers and myself, Drew Martin. We're breaking it down. If you are an NFL bettor, that's a can't miss, guys. Seriously, it's probably the best show I'm a part of, ever been a part of, and it's getting a heck of a traction. We appreciate everybody watching it. It's on the Wager Talk YouTube channel, 10 a.m. Pacific time, 1 o'clock Eastern time, each and every Monday. So 2 games left here for every game on the board. Teddy, Central Michigan and Akron, 12 noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific kick here, getting us started in the MAC. Minus 13, that's the Chippewas as the road favorite. 59 the total here, Teddy.
Yeah, pick your poison in this matchup. Central Michigan's been bad. They've been a major disappointment in my mind. They hung tough at Penn State. They hung tough at Oklahoma State.
Yeah.
But they got annihilated in Toledo 2 weeks ago. Last week at home against Ball State, they lose outright as the touchdown of more than a favorite. The offense is turning the ball over multiple times every week. The running game's hit or miss. The quarterback play hasn't been particularly good. And Central's been a good team. I thought they would be better than they are. And they're not a team right now that I'm comfortable laying this price with, although Akron tends to be a team that you can kind of get well against. And the Chips have owned the Zips. You're looking at series history here. It's been all Central Michigan. And Akron can't stop anyone. I guess they had the game against Liberty where wasn't that game played in the quagmire? Wasn't it raining that day or something? But, we've seen some really ugly defensive showings from the Zips this year against any team that can move the football. Last time out against Ohio, they gave up 55, 427 passing yards in that ballgame. The defense doesn't force a turnover. And not like Central's Tennessee or even Michigan State, but Akron's not even forcing field goal attempts a whole lot. Teams are getting in the red zone, there's boom, another touchdown, boom, another touchdown. So it's a pick your poison game. If I had to play it, I guess I'll play Central. I don't want Akron, but I don't want to play Central either. I'm not playing. I'm clearly not playing this game. Let's move on to the last one.
Teddy, we got Big Ten action to end it here, guys. 143-144, Nebraska at Purdue. 56 being the total. Minus 14, that's the Boilermakers in West Lafayette. Minus 2 touchdowns here, Teddy. You liking anything in this Big Ten matchup?
So I played Nebraska, what was it, Thursday night, Friday night, whatever night they were at Rutgers. That was a weeknight game. I remember.
Yeah, I think it was Friday. I'm not sure. Though.
Yeah, and I was debating, well, do I want to lay the juice with the money line? I'm like, no, if they're going to win the game, they'll win by a field goal or more. You don't want to lay $1.60 here. And obviously, that ended up being the wrong decision. The right play was Nebraska money line. But what stood out in that game, because I went into that game thinking, look, Nebraska is clearly better personnel than Rutgers. Maybe not. Maybe not, which is a concern. And then you say, all right, why did Scott Frost fail? Why did Scott Frost fail? Scott Frost failed because he didn't have talented players. And Nebraska's not the recruiting hotbed that it was 30 years ago. So from a talent standpoint, I worry about the Huskers. I'll just put it that way. And you don't want to overreact to 1 week. And certainly Rutgers is a good defense. and it's not like we have seen Nebraska struggle repeatedly, except when we remember what happened against Oklahoma a couple of weeks ago, and they got blown out in that game. And look what's happened to Oklahoma since then. So all this stuff, Nebraska just ratcheting down the power ratings, and then you end up with a line like this that feels really high for Purdue. Because one thing, Nebraska, with the exception of the Oklahoma game, they're in all these games. They don't win by margin, but the whole thing is the one-score games for the Huskers, hanging tough. And I'm impressed with Purdue defensively this year. We talk about defense that aren't getting love. Missouri's defense has been really good, and they're not getting any love. Purdue's defense has been really good, and they're not necessarily getting a whole lot of love. That may be a problem here for Nebraska, a team that just doesn't have a whole lot of dynamic offensive talent right now. But they play everyone close. Probably another game that at least at this stage of the week, it does look like I'm going to get involved.
He's Teddy Covers, guys. We got a most confident play coming up. That does it for this section. Check them out, Wager Talk and sportsmemo.com. Every play since February, 230 and 176. That's 57% win rate for plus 150% ROI. Betting Teddy Covers every single client play. Also his 5% plays. That's the big ticket plays, the highest rated plays. He's 17-7, 71%. His last 24. Check him out, Wager Talk and sportsmemo.com. Teddy, any final thoughts here before we shut this down? And do you have a most confident play of the section of all the games we talked about? One that you like the most?
Well, I was talking up Brian Kelly over Billy Napier.
Okay.
I talked how I don't trust Florida right now, a team that when you look back at that win against Utah, it looks like they're overvalued since. And I talked about how I thought Tennessee has a chance at least to compete with Alabama this week, which may make the put it all together. I think LSU is live which if Tennessee plays as well as I think they can against Alabama, it makes LSU's blowout loss to Tennessee last week not look as bad as it was. The whole point is this. I want Kelly off a loss. I want LSU off a bad game. And I don't think Florida has any business being favored over decent teams right now. LSU plus.
Little goat taggers from Teddy Covers. Guys, that does it for part number 2. We will be back tomorrow, actually. That does it for today. So tomorrow, 2:20 with Steve Merrill. Come back and join us then. Please smash that like button. Feel free to comment below. Any questions, more than welcome what you're betting as well. So, guys, best of luck until tomorrow. Thanks for tuning in.